Hey guys, welcome to another YouTube video. So this one in this video, I'm gonna review the the 2022 season of the Collingwood Football Club. As I'm recording this, it's of course Boxing Day. I'm planning on, because officially I am, it was sort of speculation that I was going to Geelong, but if you're watching this video right now, I am currently in Geelong. I'm gonna try over the next couple of days before I go to upload these videos in advance. So let's get straight into it. Really. So, wow, Collingwood. What a season for Collingwood. As we all know, Collingwood last year finished their lowest position ever in their history. They finished 17th with only 6 wins to their name. This season, obviously, during that year, they lost Nathan Buckley, and there was large speculation on who was going to be their coach, which turned out to be Craig McRae. This season, it proved to a top 4 finish, largely because of that 11-game winning streak that they'd had during the season. Unfortunately, they lost to the qualifying final. One of the great games of the year against Geelong. And then they beat one of the teams of the year in Fremantle in the semi-final at the MCG, and then lost by the smallest of margins against Collingwood. Collingwood was one game away from going from 17th place to a potential grand final. So it was a pretty good season all around for Collingwood, so let's get into the highlights and the highlight of their season, and it's quite an obvious one. It is their ridiculous record when it comes to tight games. I said this with Richmond, where you can that proved how the ladder can go against you when you don't win those tight games. In this one, this is an example when you do win those tight games all the time. They won a ridiculous. They won. I think it was 9. They played in 14 games that were decided by 2 goals or less. Won 11 of them, and there was about do some quick maths here. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11. They played in 11 of those games that were decided by single-figured points, and they only lost 3 of them. If you do the quick maths, that's 8 wins. So that is absolutely ridiculous. They are the undisputed kings of the tight matches in the AFL in 2022. Could they repeat it next year? I don't. You never know. Probably at this point, probably not. But you never know with Collingwood. And some of these games that they ended up winning in, they probably would have lost them. I mean, They should have. I mean, the round 23 game against Carlton and the round 19 game against Essendon was the main prime example in that. North Melbourne game also was a game that they should have lost, but they grounded out a win in that one. The Gold Coast game, they should have lost that one. It was unbelievable. It was an unbelievable, but they grinded it out. But unfortunately, the three other tight losses that they had, were two of them were from the finals. One, the qualifying final against the Cats, and the other one against the preliminary final against the Swans, which was a fantastic game as well, by the way, as well. The low light of the season, that is another obvious one. It is the round 4 loss to 17th placed West Coast. At that point, West Coast were fielding an entire team of basically top-up players who were either replacing senior players who were either injured or out due to health and safety protocols. I would say the actual C word, but I'm not sure if I can actually say it on YouTube in case I get in trouble. So that's what it got it down to. And they just weren't up in the ballpark. I mean, they just come off of losing to Geelong the week before that, and they just weren't ready for West Coast. And that was one of West Coast's 2 losses for that. One of West Coast's 2 wins for that season. The other one being against Essendon of all teams. So to mark their season out of 10, I think that I would, if they would have bowed out in the finals early, I would have given them probably a 7 or a 7.5 out of 10. But since they went from 17th place to 4th and be 1 point away from making a grand final, I would put them at a solid 8 out of 10. I think they did unbelievably well. At midpoint of the season, I think they were in 11th or 10th position on the ladder, and then out of nowhere they just started reeling off these wins, and suddenly they were just challenging for top 4, and there was the possibility that they could have finished probably 3rd or 2nd in the end, which was that's how good they were, really. So to some of the players I have to mention. So the first one is, of course, the one and only Jamie Elliott. I mean, I like to call this a superhero season for him because he was the hero for Collingwood in most games. I mean, he kicked the goal after the siren to win the game against Essendon, and then he kicked the goal to put Collingwood in front against Carlton in that round 23 match to ultimately win Collingwood top 4 and knock Carlton out of the finals. But as a season as a whole, I mean, he kicked 28 goals in 19 games. A bit of a rebound season for him because it was an injury interrupted 2021 season for him. I mean, I think he did his ankle in round 2, I believe, and he was out for a period of 2 months. So it was an injury ravaged 2021 season for Jamie. Then this season he's really came back in big time. I mean, he played only 19 games for the season. Imagine if he played all of Collingwood's games, he probably would have hit close to the 40 goal mark probably, with him scoring at 1.5 goals a game. So I believe that Elliott, as I said, it's been a superhero season for him. He's saved Collingwood on a couple of occasions, really, from the jaws of defeat, really. So yeah. The next player I want to talk about is Jordan De Goey. Of course, we all know what happened in his mid-season trip. We're not going to talk about that. And what trouble he caused, but we are going to talk about his stuff on the field. He did pretty good. He wasn't like spectacular, but he's starting to be back to his best. I mean, he played a lot more midfield time in 2022. In the past, he's either played on the forward line or played combined forward or midfield. I think he's done more midfield minutes this season. And his stats really show that he's not like he's an average midfielder, but he's not like up there with one of the top midfielders. But I believe that's for De Goey. I think it's a time. I think a lot of people have had bad raps on him because of what happened when he did that trip in Bali, and when he requested that trip to Bali for his mid-season trip, and it was a bit sus, really. I know I said I'm not talking about it but starting to talking about it, but I'm not going to talk about it in depth. But I think it was pretty poor from the club and that sort of stuff. It was banned for a couple of games. He had a pretty good first half of the season, and then it was the second half of the season when he came back. It wasn't as good as he was in the first half, but he was sort of decent either ways. I think definitely his game in the preliminary final was probably his worst game of the year. I mean, he has had absolutely no impact at all in the preliminary final. So he's still got some work to do, but I think this is a sign that he's back on the right track, and I hope that, and there's probably Collingwood fans hopes that he can rediscover his form from 2018 and early 2019 as well, for De Goey. Next one I'll talk about is what was the then skipper, now former skipper of the Pies, in Scott Pendlebury, and he had a pretty sort of an average season, did Pendles last season, because the team struggled last season, but he's sort of come back to his best. He's probably, in terms of stats wise, he's not sort of elite anymore, but in terms of leadership, we all know what sort of leadership skills that Pendles requires, as we all know. I'm interested to see how he goes next year with him without the burden of captaincy on him. I'm interested to see how that goes. But it was a good season for Pendle, a comeback year for Pendles, and hopefully it gets better now that because we saw with Travis Spoke at Port Adelaide, when he was relieved of the captaincy, when he resigned from the captaincy, he actually played better. So you never know, probably the resignation of his captaincy might actually help Pendles out in that way. So you never know with that. Might go both ways. You never know. The last player I want to be talking about, is Jack Ginnivan. I think Guinea, for him, at the age of 19 to really have a sort of year the way he did. I know there was a lot of controversy around the free kicks and that sort of stuff. I'm not going to talk about that BS, to be honest. But but you never know, with the sort of Jordan De Goey stuff, it might come out of me eventually. But on the field, he won. I watched the Anzac Day game, and he was just unstoppable in the end. At the time, even though I hated him when he did this to the Essendon G squad, I actually sort of liked it, actually, because, there's this young guy, this young 19-year-old kid, who has been copping a lot of stick from a lot of people, and just copying a lot of stick, and basically says, F you, I'm going to go out, kick 5 goals on Anzac Day and win the Anzac Day medal. And he did, and he backed it up as well. He kicked 40 goals in 23 games, averaging 1.7 goals per game at the age of 19. Just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable, really. And if he's doing these sort of figures now at the age of 19, what will happen in a couple of years' time when he, or in, like, let's say a couple of years or 5 years' time, when he gets into his mid-20s, when he starts maturing as a pretty decent as a pretty elite small forward. And I think now, I'll get to this in a bit, now that with Bobby Hill now at Collingwood, that would be pretty interesting to see how those two go as a small forward partnership, really. So it's pretty interesting. Interesting time for Collingwood. So I think Jack Ginnivan, I think, is probably a star small forward for the future in that case. Well, so the last thing I want to talk about is, of course, the who is under pressure. Who is under pressure? And it's not 1, it's not 2, it's not 3, it's 4 players. And these are the 4 new recruits that Collingwood brought in. That is Dan McStay, Bobby Hill, Billy Frampton, and of course Tom Mitchell. So each have a different. I know why they brought in Bobby Hill to try and maybe just take some pressure off Jack Ginnivan as well. I know why they brought in Tom Mitchell just for depth and that sort of stuff. But I don't think in terms of Tom Mitchell's quality, I don't think that he's going to add a lot much, really. He's about Tom Mitchell, I believe. I don't think Tom Mitchell, to be honest, has been the same player ever since he done his leg in early 2019. Since then, he's been close to rediscovering his Brownlow medal winning form that he did in 2018, but not quite close enough. Not quite close enough. I think McStay, I don't know that front McStay, I don't know what they're gonna do with him. I don't know if he's gonna be like when he was at Brisbane, like a swing man, and basically started it going forward, and then if it's not going well down back, he can just move down back. I don't know what they're gonna do with him. Probably they're gonna put him maybe as a high half forward, maybe, I don't know. And Frampton, I must guess, I would assume as excuse me. I assume probably. I wonder if they're going. I'd assume what they're gonna do, what Craig McRae's gonna do, is play Cox more as a full forward, and then the ruck roles will switch between Frampton and Darcy Cameron, I'd assume. I'd assume so. Or Frampton's gonna be playing at high half forward, high centre half forward and that sort of stuff. I don't know. I don't know what their plans are going to be, but I'd assume Frampton will be the second ruck, so that means no longer does Cox have to go into the ruck. Unless if one of those two gets injured, then he might have to ruck. But I think Frampton and the question is, Frampton and Cameron, would it be enough to be as a replacement for one guy by the name of Brodie Grundy? No, it's not. It's not going to be a right replacement. So yeah. And we've seen it so many times that if you bring in 3 or 4 recruits in one season into your squad, into your team, it just it sometimes it works, but most of the time it does not work. I mean, for us, Essendon, we proved it in 2017 when we got Sarge, Stringer, and Smith, and the next year in 2018 we ended up missing the finals. So we ended up missing the finals. Yes, having 1 or 2 impact recruits is good enough without overcomplicating your squad. But 3 or 4, that just means that it's just going to ask for trouble, really. If anybody were to ask me right now, out of all the sides in the A that were in 2022, who would you see get bumped out in 2023? I would choose 3 teams: the Bulldogs, Fremantle, and Collingwood. Because and for Collingwood, and the reason why I choose Collingwood in that is because it reminds me of Essendon season in 2021. Everyone predicted Essendon to finish in the bottom 4 on the ladder in 2021. Some people even predicted them to win the Spoon. Even I predicted them to finish bottom 4, and we somehow crept our way into 8th position and made it in the finals. Lost in the first final to the Western Bulldogs. Next season, 15th, 7 wins. What I'm saying is there's the possibility that Collingwood could be like a bit of a season. I'm trying to think, a season where Collingwood fans fall back down to earth and just think, oh, we've been on this high, we finished top 4, we've won all these tight games, we were close to making the grand final, we're gonna make the grand final this year. Unfortunately, if you do that, then there's more of a chance that your team might go back down again. And I think that's the word. I've just thought out the word: rude awakening. Rude awakening. I think this potentially might. It either will be a season where Collingwood takes to another level and does be a premiership contender and prove that 2022 was no fluke, or they would have a rude awakening season where they finish 12th, 13th, 14th, 11th, 12th, 13th, and not make finals at all. That's either going to go 2 ways, and unfortunately, from what I'm saying, it's more than likely they're going to have a rude awakening season than them going to the next level. And as I said, you need to improve in this league. You need to move on and progress very quickly. Because if you stay stagnant, then you can easily get ate up and spat back out very, very quickly. That's what I've learned. That's what I've learned over my years and years of being a fan as an AFL fan in the AFL since I was about 9. Is that you need to improve and have your side progress and move on pretty quickly from a season. So yeah, that's just not me. Because it's not. That's not me. At my hatred of Essendon fruit. There's a possibility maybe, but that's just my personal opinion. That's just my personal opinion. I think that Collingwood might. There's more of a chance at them having a rude awakening season and finishing 11th, 12th to 11th to 13th, then finishing third or second or finish as minor premiers. That's just my view. But yeah, so that's my opinion. So like this video, share it to anybody who's a Collingwood fan. Comment down below. Comment down below what are your thoughts are. Do you, about Collingwood this season? Do you agree with me about them having a rude awakening season, or you disagree with me and say that they will finish, they will go to the next level and do show that this season was no fluke? I'd love to hear your opinions. And one last thing, somewhere down there, check out, click on the big red button which is labelled subscribe. But until next time, guys, I'll see you guys later, and wherever you may be, may the sun or the moon shine on you.